Over the past 130 years, the average surface temperature has increased by 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. It is projected that by the year 2100, the average surface temperature will increase by 4.5 to 9.7 degrees Fahrenheit. CO2 levels in the troposphere are the highest they have been in 650,000 years. They come mostly from the burning of fossil fuels in cars, industry, and also burning wood.
I do admit that the CO2 increase in the last 150 years is a result of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, there's no question that the level of CO2 has gone up in that time period from around 250 parts per billion to 300, I think 380.
CO2 is a greenhouse gas along with methane, nitrous oxide, and water vapor. The greenhouse gas effect is when CO2 in the atmosphere traps the sun heat here in the troposphere.
If we have ice thinning up on the polar cap, I would say that's more natural variation than it is man-made CO2. For one thing, there are not many people up around the North Pole, so it's pretty hard to see how we could be causing it.
My name is Rhonda Bedell. I teach AP Environmental Science and Biology here at Spanish Springs High School. The Coriolis effect is caused by the rotation of the Earth on its axis. You see, as the Earth rotates, if you were, let's say, a plane and you wanted to travel from here to here, because the Earth is rotating, instead of getting to your destination, you would get deflected. So objects naturally in the northern hemisphere get deflected in a clockwise manner, whereas in the southern hemisphere they are deflected in a counterclockwise manner. This also affects the way the pollutants travel. Pollutants will naturally go from the tropics towards the poles, and they'll biomagnify in the polar food chains. They've shown that in the last 50 years the temperatures in the Arctic have increased twice as fast as the rest of the planet because of the Coriolis effect.
So what's the big deal? The tipping point, a point in which it is impossible to reverse drastic change. Scientists have come up with a worst case scenario in which there are dried out ecosystems, severe storms, possibly worse than Hurricane Sandy, and fast spreading insect disease. Scientists warn that the tipping point will be 20 years away.
Yes, I believe we have a tipping point. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, our carbon dioxide atmospheric concentration was at about 270 parts per million, and now it's at about 390 parts per million, and they believe that the tipping point is going to be at 450 parts per million. They have data that they collected from ice cores that 55 million years ago they saw a warming trend like the one that we're experiencing right now. They measured the CO2 in these ice cores, and they saw from that concentration the ocean currents actually did change direction, and they didn't correct themselves for another 20,000 years. And that's what a tipping point is the point at which you can't reverse and go back to where you were at.
Now, Lake Mead is really the reservoir, the sort of reserve tank, or the holding tank for water for Las Vegas and Phoenix, and also for a chunk of Southern California. Now, Southern California also gets water from Northern California, so and Phoenix has a couple of other sources too. But for Las Vegas, the Colorado River and Lake Mead is basically it.
My name is Charlene Hutton. I teach here at Spanish Springs. I'm an AP environmental teacher. I don't think people understand that the water supply here in Nevada and the United States is really low, because they don't understand that the difference between water that is available for us, fresh water that isn't polluted, that it doesn't have eutrophication, we haven't put phosphates and nitrates in it, all those kinds of things, is very limited. In fact, it's like 0.02% of the world's water is actually useful fresh water.
Nevada is facing shorter snow seasons and increased precipitation. That means that we won't have enough time to trap and store the water. We will end up having less water for public use than we would have had if it had snowed.
Think about what brings people to Las Vegas. Certainly the entertainment industry, certainly the gambling, but also things like golf. Now, what does it take to keep a golf course green in a desert, in sort of one of the world's most best-known deserts, the Mojave Desert? it takes an incredible amount of water.
There's two reasons that golf courses don't do very well anymore. Number one is the way they're run. They're not run sustainably as far as the water, fertilizers and things like that they put on them. And the other reason is we live in a desert.
DeAndrea Golf Course is a golf course here in Reno that went out of business because of the outrageous cost for water and maintenance. It is now an eyesore for the residents in the DeAndrea neighborhood. If we as a nation keep living like this, Mr. President, then our children and our future generations will have to live with the choices that we make today.